Overwatch is a game that has a lot of different heroes and a lot of different abilities, and not all abilities were created equal. Many of them had to go through a massive set of buffs or even nerfs to get to the point where they are at today. So I figured that it would be a fun topic to look into what abilities have been buffed the most throughout Overwatch's lifespan in order to make them the strong and competitive abilities that they are today. Now, this list is kind of going to be subjective to a degree. You can't really objectify how much stronger an ability is after it has gotten changed, and I also may have forgotten some abilities and just how bad they were when the heroes first came out, so please comment if you agree, disagree with this list or any abilities that I may have forgotten to consider. But for the purpose of this list, we'll be looking at the abilities when they first were added into the game, be it if they were in it on a hero from launch or if they were in one of the new heroes added to the game, and comparing how good those abilities were back then to how good they are right now. So just getting right into it, number 5 on the list we have Now, Guardian Angel isn't an ability that was necessarily bad when Overwatch first launched, but it has definitely seen a lot of buffs to help it keep up and be competitive with other forms of mobility in the game. In particular, the first big spike in the power of Guardian Angel came from the October 17th, 2017 update, where Blizzard added the ability for players to now glide past the ally that they were flying to by pressing the jump key. This was the first big movement of Mercy actually having some tech to Guardian Angel, because before it would just take you towards the person you were flying to and drop you off in front of them. Now you had the option to press space and do a little jump and then continue to keep your momentum and glide past them. It's also worth noting that I'm pretty sure that this is the change that introduced the super jump bug into the game. So yeah, this also gave Mercy super jump, which, while it was a bug, still massively increased her mobility potential and was basically a staple of her kit that all Mercy players kind of had to learn. And then the next big spike in power came when Overwatch 2 launched and Blizzard decided to take Mercy's super jump and try and change it from being a bug to being an intended mechanic for the hero, leading to the Guardian Angel that we have today, where you build up charge and you can use it to launch yourself in any direction and not just straight up. And I'm not a Mercy one trick by any means, so I can't really have too strong of a stance on her mobility, but I feel like the ability to just take your momentum and throw it in any direction is much better than the old super jump from Overwatch 1, where you could only go straight up into the air. So especially if you're comparing the state of Guardian Angel now to the state that it was when Overwatch first launched, it is miles better than what it used to be, and maybe even deserves to be a bit higher on this list, but I'll let viewers decide that after I've gone through the rest of them, because the next ability on the list at number 4 is Reaper's Wraith Form was not a very great ability. The first big buff to Wraith Form came on the May 23rd, 2017 patch, where it saw a change that would have your ammo restored after you used Wraith Form. So yeah, launch Wraith Form would not even reload your gun for you. If you used it when you had 1 bullet left, then you'd have 1 bullet left when you exited Wraith Form. But the real big change to Wraith Form came on April 10th of 2018. This saw the movement speed bonus that Reaper gets in Wraith Form being increased from 25 to 50%, but more importantly, Wraith Form could now be manually cancelled by either pressing the ability key again or by using his primary fire. And this was easily the best change to Wraith Form, because Wraith Form felt really bad since you were always going to be stuck in it for the full duration if you were to use it. You couldn't use it to quickly avoid a quick burst of damage, you couldn't use it to, quickly reload or cross gaps or anything, because once you used it, you were committed to staying in Wraith Form until the ability ended. And there were more than a few times where this resulted in you just staring at the enemy team in the eyes as they just look at you and wait for it to end and then delete you from reality as soon as it does. You had no opportunity to try and mix it up by canceling Wraith Form early or anything like that. You were basically just a spectator for the 3 seconds that Wraith Form lasted. So the ability to cancel out of it at any time, plus the additional movement speed and also the fact that it now restored your ammo when you used it, definitely made it a much stronger ability than it was when Overwatch 1 first released. So moving on to ability number 3, we have Cassidy's combat roll was an ability that was kind of awful when it first released. It basically was just there as a way to reload for free every 8 seconds. Yeah, when Overwatch 1 first launched, the cooldown on combat roll was 8 seconds, and all that it did was reload your weapon. It did move you a little bit, but you couldn't even use it while you were in the air. You could only use it on the ground. So you couldn't even use it as mobility to try and get to high ground or cross a gap that you normally couldn't. It was just free reload on an 8-second cooldown. The first big change was October 9th, 2018, which saw the cooldown actually being reduced from 8 seconds to 6 seconds. And then at some point, I looked through the patch notes and I couldn't find the exact time that it was added to the game. But at some point, you could also use combat roll while in the air. And this kind of made it a whole lot better because now you could use it for mobility, you could use it to cross gaps. If you were to be, knocked into the air by some kind of ability, you could use it as an evasive maneuver to avoid follow-up. It added some versatility to the ability aside from just being, a reload. Next up in the Overwatch 2 beta on June 28th, 2022, combat roll saw it gain more utility in the form of a 50% damage resistance that was applied to Cassidy for the duration of the combat roll. Next, on February 7th, 2023, combat roll was changed again so that movement would no longer be blocked by enemy player collision, meaning that you could no longer be body blocked. You could use Cassidy's combat roll to go straight through players who may have been trying to block you into a room. And then lastly, with Season 7, we saw the damage reduction on combat roll being increased from 50% to 75%. And all of this utility really added up for combat roll. It's still not a great ability by any stretch of the imagination, but it definitely has much more utility than it did before. Compared to when it first launched and it was basically just a reload, now it has a lower cooldown. It can now be used to avoid damage from a pulse bomb or any other large instance of damage. It can be used in the air, so you can use it to flank and get to places where Cassidy normally would not be able to get to without combat roll. And also, you can use it to move through enemy players, meaning that Cassidy can't be body blocked into a room or anything because he can just roll through the player blocking him in, assuming that he has the ability off cooldown. So next, moving into the hero at number 2 on this list, yeah, it's Reaper again. Overwatch 1 Reaper was a hero that suffered a lot from the fact that armor worked the way it did. He was a character that was meant to be a counter to tank, but any tank that had armor, he wasn't very good against because armor reduced all damage Reaper deals by 50%. So even the one thing Reaper was supposed to be good at, he wasn't even really that good at. So his abilities saw a lot of buffs to try and make him more competitive. The first buff to Shadow Step occurred on July 27th, 2017. And saw the sound effect and voiceover distance reduced by 50%, basically just meaning that you were slightly more stealthy when Reaper was using Shadow Step, because Blizzard intended it for being mainly an out-of-combat ability. But that really wasn't good, and Blizzard finally decided to change that on April 16th, 2019. This saw a complete overhaul to Shadow Step and actually making it a very strong ability that can also be used offensively. So the list of buffs that Shadow Step got: you can now use it while you're in the air. The time to exit Shadow Step was reduced from 1 second to half a second. Reaper is now invisible for the entire time it takes to exit Shadow Step. So before, when he was using Shadow Step, when he was at the destination, you could just kill him before he even regains control over his character. It was just that bad of an ability. Again, like they said, they intended for it to be mainly an out-of-combat ability, but that just wasn't good enough. In addition, railings and breakable objects would no longer stop Reaper from teleporting, making it more consistent to use in a tight team fight where you just needed to get out. And then the one downside being that it was disabled by Zarya's Graviton, Surge, and also Junkrat Trap. But I mean, that's not really a major thing considering the massive amount of buffs that it got. And that basically took this ability from being something that was just an absolute throw to try and even consider using in a regular fight, to being an ability that could be used in a fight reasonably well, assuming that you didn't just stand in front of the entire enemy team when you did it. Like, I'm sure a lot of people in Overwatch have seen the whole Reaper just shadow steps into the entire enemy team and then dies instantly. Imagine that, but there's a full second where Reaper can be damaged before he even regains control over his character. That's what Shadow Step was like when Overwatch first launched. A very bad ability that is much better now. And then finally, number 1, the most buffed ability throughout Overwatch's history. Maybe when people expected, maybe not when people expected, but it is... Yeah, Roadhog's Take a Breather was actually not too bad in the launch of Overwatch 1. It's just that its current state is absolutely insane compared to what it was like back then. When Overwatch 1 was first released, Take a Breather was a 300 health heal that was mainly just out of combat healing for Roadhog. Good, because he really had an insta-kill, chain hook combo, flank, and kind of be alone playstyle, and a out of combat self-heal worked really well with it. It was just 300 health and that's it. But now it just does basically everything. So first off, on August 29th of 2017, they changed it so that you could now move while using Take a Breather. Yeah, previously, if you used it, you were completely locked in place. So it can now be used while moving. Really big buff. In addition, the damage taken while healing through Take a Breather has been reduced by 50%. So not only could you now move around while using the ability, it also gave you the same damage resistance that Fortify gives Orisa. Then in the Overwatch 2 beta, the healing of the ability was increased from 300 health to 350 health. This was mainly just to keep up with the ability being a 50% heal for Roadhog, because Roadhog got his health buffed from 600 to 700, the healing from Take a Breather was adjusted appropriately. But that's not the last buff, because in June 13th, 2023, the healing that Roadhog received after using Take a Breather was increased by 50% for 2.5 seconds. So this ability went from a 300 health stationary self-heal to a 350 health self-heal that can be used while moving, also gives you 50% damage reduction, and then also increase the healing that you received after using it by 50%. That is a massive amount of gains for one ability to get from its base form in Overwatch 1. It has really come a very long way in how strong the ability is. So yeah, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe for more Overwatch content, or just if you want to help support the channel. You don't even have to press the bell button or anything. Just a subscription helps a lot. So yeah, please like and subscribe, and until next time, see ya.